When Elias was born, the doctors told his mother he had a 20% chance of surviving past his first year. Born 3 months premature in a rural hospital with outdated equipment, Elias weighed barely 2 pounds. His lungs were underdeveloped, his organs fragile, and every breath he took was a gamble. The statistics weren't on his side. But his mother, Miriam, clung to the sliver of hope hidden in that number, 20%. It wasn't nothing. It was something. And she chose to believe in it with everything she had. She slept in hospital chairs, learned to adjust feeding tubes, held his tiny hand through incubator glass, and whispered prayers into his blanket every night. Elias survived that first year. Then the second. His body remained small, but his will to live outgrew every prognosis. At 5, he was still behind most children his age. He didn't run as fast, didn't speak as clearly. Doctors added new diagnoses to his file: developmental delays, mild cerebral palsy, speech difficulties, but Miriam only saw her son's progress. School was a battle. Teachers tried, but many were overworked and undertrained. Elias struggled to keep up, often pulled out for special sessions. The other kids didn't understand why he was different. They teased him, called him slow. There were days he came home silent, his shoulders slumped and backpack dragging behind him like a weight. Miriam would kneel beside him, lift his chin, and say the same words she always did: "You are more than they can see. Keep showing them." At 12, Elias discovered chess. His hands still trembled slightly when he moved the pieces, but his mind was sharp. Strategy came naturally. Patterns excited him. He joined the school's tiny club and beat the best player in his first month. For the first time, people looked at him not with pity, but with awe. A year later, he qualified for a regional competition. His school didn't have the funds to support him, so Miriam sold her old gold bracelet, a wedding gift, to cover travel expenses. Elias didn't win, but he placed third. That bronze medal was displayed in their living room like it was Olympic gold. As he grew older, Elias learned to mask the slowness of his speech with quiet confidence. He wasn't the loudest in the room, but when he spoke, people listened. His math scores improved dramatically. Reading took longer, but he read everything: manuals, biographies, strategy books. He began tutoring other students in math and logic puzzles. The boy who once sat alone at lunch now had a small group of friends who admired his persistence, his kindness, and his brilliance. But life didn't stop throwing punches. At 16, Elias was hit by a drunk driver while walking home from school. He suffered a fractured hip, 3 broken ribs, and a mild traumatic brain injury. The doctors told Miriam he might not walk again. The statistics, once again, painted a grim picture. Elias spent 8 months in rehabilitation. At first, he could barely sit up without help. Every step was a war. But he fought. Every day. Inch by inch, he rebuilt what had been broken. When he finally walked, slowly, with a cane, across the graduation stage 2 years later, the auditorium erupted. Not because he was valedictorian, he was, but because everyone in that room knew what it had taken for him to get there. He gave a short speech. His voice still carried a subtle tremble, but no one noticed. What they saw was a young man who had been told he wouldn't live, wouldn't walk, wouldn't thrive, and yet he stood before them tall in his cap and gown, defying every number, every diagnosis, every no. Elias was accepted into a prestigious university on a full scholarship to study biomedical engineering. He wanted to design better equipment for premature babies, machines that could save lives like his. He said, "If I was born into odds, I want to spend my life improving them for others." Years later, Elias became a lead developer on a project that created a cost-effective incubator for rural hospitals. It was portable, solar-powered, and able to monitor infant vitals remotely. In its first year alone, it saved hundreds of lives in underserved communities. And one evening, at a quiet conference surrounded by fellow researchers, he held a small, worn-out photo of himself in an incubator, barely alive, and said, "This is the baby they said wouldn't make it." But sometimes, what saves us is someone who chooses to believe, against all odds. Elias's story didn't just defy statistics, it rewrote them.